All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much. We do not take it for granted. I want to welcome you to this event, this Going Global event. This is specifically with Adedamola, who is the head of legal and compliance at Vesti. My name is Ifeoluwa Aliyo Hadbaji. I'm the partnerships and communications leader at Vesti, and we're excited to have you here with us, join us for this event this evening. This is one of the events that we typically do across countries, particularly in Africa here, and of course in Europe. Basically, it's an event that allows us to really connect with our target audience, those who are really interested in special talent visas and also interested in going global, essentially. This is Vesti. We're a migration fintech company, and we are the preferred provider of legal and financial services for immigrants from the moment that they decide that they want to move from their source countries to destination countries, and even every moment after they get to their destination countries. We are so excited about the future that we are building for everyone. Just like I typically tell people when I meet them at various events and fora about what we do at Vesti, we are solving two fundamental problems. Essentially, the messy immigration right now and the worst financial mobility. There are a lot of people that want to move abroad right now, but they don't understand. They don't even know the different pathways that they should take advantage of when they want to move abroad. And on the other hand, those who have moved abroad that are experiencing financial challenges, as the case may be, they cannot access credit facilities, they cannot even access bank accounts in different countries or destination countries that they are moving to. These are some of the problems that we are solving at Vesti, and you can see that drive, that passion, how we keep telling our story at Vesti and how we are tackling the problems essentially. And just like we've also continuously reiterated, we've been able to develop a proprietary tool that brings together migration pathways and financial services together on one platform, the first of its kind, which is Invest Hub. Gone are the days where you're on a particular migration pathway for a long time and you don't even know what stage you are on that particular migration pathway. Right now, people can visualize their migration journey right on the Invest Hub and see what level, what stage they are at every critical point. So, once again, I want to welcome you all to this Going Global event. Without wasting much of our time, I want to welcome on stage. I'm not going to be doing this alone. Basically, and that's why we are here. We have one of the senior leaders here at Vesti who has flown in all the way from Dallas, Texas, in the United States of America for this Going Global event. He is our head of legal and compliance at Vesti. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome on stage Mr. Adedamola. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today?
All right, so we just dive right into the conversation. I will just allow Damola to take us through. We understand that you have come here today to really get more informed about the different pathways, particularly our special talent visas. We understand that there are some people that have started the process. They are already like on the pipeline with us. They have started conversations with us. We understand that there are some people that they've not even started. They are still at the point of making a decision about should I or should I not? What is it about? What do I need to take into consideration? And Mr. Damola will be addressing some of these critical issues here today. I'll just allow him to go dive into the conversation right now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ife. It's good to be here today and to speak with everyone in the room. Um, Humans by nature, we are nomadic. We are not restricted to a particular place. We move from places to places, and that's one of the things that inspired us to establish Vesting. We know that not only are you moving yourselves, you're also moving your finances. And we've seen situations whereby people move and then they get to a new country, they get stuck because the America stops working. People can't book over at the airport. They can't even pay for maintenance. So we created the financial arm of this business as well. in which we have like global banking partners that allows you to use your to use Vestic cards to make payments all over the world. So pretty much the reason why we call this session is so that we can talk about the different pathways available to many of the first world countries. And of course by first world countries, I'm going to be focusing mainly on Canada, the United States, and of course the UK. And of course, we're going to be taking questions from the audience, as many questions as you may have. We're going to be answering those questions today in this session. So that's by way of introduction. By the way, my name is Adedamola. I sit in the Dallas, Texas office at the head of legal and compliance here at VST. I oversee virtually all the cases that we have. And yes, I'll be here to take all your questions. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I understand that many of us will come in from different locations. I was even told by the team that someone flew in all the way from Dubai to join us for this session this evening. We truly appreciate you and we do not take your time here for granted. Please just give us kind of an expose on the different special talent visas that are very, very available and that people should take advantage of. When I mean people now, I'm talking about funders, entrepreneurs, even HNIs, high network individuals. That these are types that they should take advantage of. That perhaps they don't even know that they are eligible for these visa types and they've done the remarkable stuff within their chosen endeavor and they are fit for this visa. Could you please just walk us through some of these special talent visas?
All right. So before I start and before I start talking about the different pathways and visas available, I usually advise people this way that what inspires the pathway you want to go through or the pathway you want to take, sort of like individual and personal to you. I've met people that they tell me that, see, I'm done with this country. I just want to move my family, myself, and my business and my finances to a new country, and that's it. Other people will tell me, well, I'm not sort of ready yet to move finally. I still have things that I'm doing here, I have business, I have family here. But I need that access to another country so that anytime I feel like, maybe I'm tired, I need a break, I need a vacation, I can always go and come back. So that sort of would give perspective as to the kind of pathways that would be appropriate for you. That being said, I'm going to start with the UK. So one of the special talent visas of the UK today is the Global Talent Visa, which is the tech nation. And most people have this misconception that it's only for tech people. The Global Talent Visa of the UK sort of cuts across different sectors, from the sciences to arts. Just that the digital technology aspect of it has been the one getting more focus because that's the one everyone in technology has been doing. And of course, the endorsing body is the tech nation. So in case you're like another aspect of life like arts, you're not totally ruled out of the technique of the global challenges of the UK. You can just look into that and see which endorsing body apart from the technicians would endorse you for that. Now the US social talent visa is one in which have most range because I'm in the US. I think a lot of people try to move to the US, and that's why I can sort of give you deep insight as to these special talent visas. So, broadly speaking, there are two categories of visas available to every foreign national trying to move to the US. And these categories include the non-immigrant visa and the immigrant visa. Now, the non-immigrant visa is the one that a lot of people might be familiar with because we have over 30 types of those kind of visas. You may be familiar with the B1 visa for tourism, the F1 for students, C1 for those transiting, P1 for crew, K1 spousal, O1 special talents, a lot of those ones, and ones. But one thing that all these visas have in common is that they are single intent purpose visas. In the sense that once you get them, you are coming to the US for a single purpose. When you're done with that purpose, you're expected to leave the US or you extend that visa as the case may be. Now, under this non-immigrant visa, we have one special kind of visa that's sort of like an untapped area that many people have not been utilizing this particular visa. In fact, when we saw the statistics of how many of these visas were issued in the past 3-4 years by the US consulate in Lagos and Abuja, you will be overwhelmed. So to give you more context, the visa is called the O1 Extraordinary Ability Visa. So in 2021, the US consulate here in Lagos, they issued 65,000 F1 visas for students. Within that same year, they issued around 80,000 B1, B2. Guess how many O1s they issued that year? 1,200. That's to just give you a perspective that people are not really looking towards that side. Now, the O1 visa is one category of visa that if you get in today, if you get approved today, it doesn't have the requirement of you waiting for 2 years to get the date for an interview. In fact, you can get a date next week or in 2 weeks' time. Remember, I said people are not typically applying for it. The reason why you have wait times for other categories of visa is because a lot of people are applying for it. So you have backlogs of people who are on the line. So, talking about the O1 extraordinary ability visa, because it's a special talent visa, so typically you would be considered on the merits of your achievements in your career, pretty much. So the reason why the US government brought this particular visa is that they've seen that one thing about the US is that US loves talent. Like, if you're doing very well in your own country, they need you. And prior to this moment, there was a time whereby, the US was built by immigrants anyway. So there was a time where advanced countries of the world, China, Russia, realized that they also need their experts back home. So they put their experts and then many people went back to their countries. And now the US is talent. So they feel like if you are risen to the top of your field, you are one of the top maybe 10, 20%, and you have like the documents and the evidence to back that assertion up, you are the type of people that they are calling. So that's pretty much what the O1 entails. And another good thing about the O1 is that it is very flexible. For example, that the non-immigrant visa, the B1, B2, even if you get, I think now they're issuing 5 years. When you get it, when you make your first trip or your second trip, you're always standing for 6 months, which means that you can't stay more than 6 months on a particular trip. But for the O1 special talent visa, it's issued for 3 years. In fact, it's a work visa kind of. So to break it down further, it's not a visa that you're getting for vacation or for tourism. It is a work visa. And the way it normally works is that, let's say you're applying to a company like Meta, like Amazon or Microsoft, it's one of the visas that they can issue or file for you to come to the US to work for them. However, there is one lacuna or little gap that they didn't really envisage that we could tap in. And of course, they allow it because, we sort of like realize that could work. Because if you're saying that if I apply to an Amazon and Amazon could file for me to come to the US based on the fact that I want to work with them, then we looked at that. What stops me from incorporating my own company? And then my company filing for me to come to the US and you move. So this is sort of very interesting because I remember up to today, when people get to the US consulate to finalize the O1 process, many consular officers still find it unbelievable that that is possible. In fact, many go back into consult with their superior that, wait, I have someone in front who is saying that they have a company that is filing for them to go to the US. And they tell them, yeah, it's possible. That's what they got created. So that's one of the things that makes the O1 visa very unique and very special. It's very flexible. You get 3 years. In the interim, once you get the visa, once you're stamping, you can spend the entire 3 years in the US, or you can go in and come out as you like. So if you're the type that you believe you're not ready to move fully, still have things to do in Nigeria, you have family, that you have business, you have things that still require your attention, the O1 would be the appropriate way for you to go. So you can look into that, and of course, we are ready to work with you based on that. So I'll just go into the details of the things that you need to supply to get the O1 visa. And many people already looking forward to what do I now do to qualify for this O1 visa?
Sorry, before we go into that, I thought you also mentioned, so if that person gets the visa, what happens to the person's immediate family? Are they also left in Nigeria or they are also considered? I think you should also touch on that before we.
Thank you very much. So that's a very good question. So one thing about this visa is that your family is not, they are not neglected. So you get the O1 and then your spouse gets the O3 visa and then your children also get the O3 visa. So those are the dependent visa of the O1. Now, just a few things separates the O1 from the O3 because you as the main applicant, you're the one getting the O1. So you're expected to be working with that US entity, even if it's your own company that you have registered that is filing for you as the petitioner. You're still expected to be working for that company, sort of like you go to the US, because that's what you sort of like disclose to them that you want to go and do. Now, remember your dependents, they are not working with the US, they're just here to support you. So the stakes are sort of like lower for them. You as the main applicant, when you get to the US, you're eligible to get your social security number, you get credit cards, you can get a driver's license, you live as a resident. Now, for the dependents, which is where most people worry, can my wife work? Can my spouse work? Can my children work? Unfortunately, they cannot work on the ODD visa. And when we say you cannot work on the ODD visa, what this means is that if you apply for a job, let's say at a corporation like Microsoft or Meta or Amazon, or Oracle, they will ask you what your status is in the US, whether you're a US citizen, permanent resident, whether you have a work permit. If you tell them you have an O3 visa, they would not hire you. So because it's a non-immigrant visa that is unable to work, it cannot confer benefit of working on you. However, there are other things that you can do on the O3 as a dependent. You can go to school. Because you're not living in the US, your husband is or your wife is an applicant. So if you apply to a school in the US, they would take you as a student, so that's not a problem. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Because the way the US works is that, even though you have the O3 visa, it doesn't mean that you cannot legally earn money. If you have skills and talents that you can channel and you can use to make money, you're allowed to do so. In fact, companies can still engage you despite the fact that you have the O3 visa. Now, there are three levels of working in the US. There's something we call W2. This is where the companies hire you as an employee, and then the companies file your taxes for you. That's typically what's simple. And then there's something we call independent contractor, 1099. This is where they hire you, but you're sort of responsible for your taxes from beginning to the end. So during the tax year, you will file your taxes. The company will really claim you as an employee, but you are an independent contractor. So if you get that kind of independent contractor role, then that's possible. Also, there's one more thing that you can do. Remember your spouse, who is the main applicant to the company that they're using to transact or work in the US. You can get corp-to-corp jobs with that company. So call them corporation to corporation jobs. So if a company is trying to hire you on a larger scale, they would prefer to deal with your company than you individually. So your company would now be the employee of that company, and then whoever is executing at the back end doesn't really matter. Even your wife could work with you, or your husband could work with you on the back end. The most important thing for the American government is that for every $1 that you make in the economy, you have to pay your taxes. That's the one thing that concerns America. It might not even be legal, but as far as you're making money and you pay your taxes, you're good.
Interesting. So we can go into the eligibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So the criteria and the requirements for this particular visa I'm explaining, it's very easy, it's very simple. In fact, they like to come off as like they're trying to help you when you're there to do this. And it's so ridiculous that when people see the requirements, they're like, are you saying that I only need 3 out of 8? You say yes. So there are like 8 steps or 8 requirements that the US government has stated that you need to show that you qualify for this visa. And they say for you to get approved out of 8, you only need 3. And I tell people that if you tell me you only need 3 out of 8, even if you don't have all the 8 at the time that you're saying them, I tell them that do not be discouraged, because what you don't know typically won't hurt you. But if you're hearing about it for the first time and you don't have the things there you have set out to say, maybe awards or this, don't beat yourself about it. Just give yourself some time, and then commit to that process to say, okay, maybe in 3 or 5 or 8 months time, I would have gotten some things on this list, then I'll come back and apply for this. So briefly speaking, the first thing that they want you to show to get qualified for this is your awards. This is a work visa. They're trying to get you approved based on your achievement, based on what you have done in your field. So what can speak more about your achievement than your awards? And I tell people when it comes to awards, it doesn't have to be that you have been called out on a stage like this and been presented with a plaque. Awards can come in several ways. It could be a commendation, could be a nomination, could be a recognition of you being brilliant, could be a grant, could be a scholarship. Anything where you have been recognized in the past to say, oh, good job, you're brilliant. That's a very good form of award. Now, there are 2 ways to get the O1 visa. I almost forgot about that. The first one is that if you have won a world-class award, and this is sort of straightforward for people like Yuda Basi that won the Guinness World Record. So they say if you have won a one-time significant award, like a world record award, like the Pulitzer, the Nobel Peace Prize, the Guinness World Record, the Oscar, the Grammy, you don't need to show any other evidence. That single award alone qualifies you to get your one time. Now, you know that it's going to be hard to use that as a yardstick to measure every other person in those line of work. We know amazing musicians who don't have Grammy Awards. We know fantastic actors who don't have the Oscars. We know many people who are like outstanding who don't have the Pulitzer or the Nobel Peace Prize. So that's why they created the other eight category to say, okay, even though you don't have those world class awards, let's look at these eight. Give us any three that you have out of these eight, and then we can talk. So that's why they say any other award that you have that is not as big as the Pulitzer or the Grammy, let us see it. Now, the reason why they do this is because if you have the Grammy or the Pulitzer, they don't need to ask you to explain what that award is. They already know what it is. Like whether you're coming from Singapore or Kenya or Nigeria, a Pulitzer is a Pulitzer, a Grammy is a Grammy. So whoever's at the USAIS, they know that for you to have it, you're obviously extraordinary. However, on the other hand, let's say you are trying to get qualified under the other eight categories, and of course you are trying to show the awards that you have won, even if it's like the MPCA or let's say bank awards or whatever award that the people give, no matter how big the award is, they still expect more from you because now you are submitting evidence to people that don't really know you. They don't know the industry where you play. Now, some people that are like sort of popular in their field in the country, but they just believe that submitting one single plaque would get them that particular criteria. It doesn't work that way. And the reason is because everything that you submitted, the onus of proof is on you to give them additional evidence that would make them understand what you did to win that award. So let's say you have like some people have like 10 awards. And when they submit this to them, like, oh, that's perfect, but we need additional information about each of these awards because they would send them back to us to say, yes, we have sent you awards, but what did you do to win this award? What were the criteria that the organizers used to select you as a winner? What was the selection process? How many of these awards do they give out yearly? The reason why they ask these questions is because they don't want the situation whereby you are bringing an award that people just sat down in the four corners of the sitting room and then they issue to you. So they want to know that at least that award, some level of national acclaim. So it's not a case of quantity, it's about quality. So if you have 10 awards and you can only get those support information for three, I think you're good. You're better, disregarding the other seven because those would cause more problems for you. So just stick with the three that you can get the information for. So that's typically the first way it works. So they want to see your awards. And remember, this is a case of showing 3 out of 8 things. So in case you don't have awards, you can still get your 3 things out of other categories. So I think the second category is membership. So people naturally belong to some associations. The virtue of what you do, lawyers belong to NBA, engineers belong to NSC, professional bodies. So, and over the course of the time that we have been doing this, we've seen so many associations that people have submitted to get this particular category. And before I used to think that, once you have membership that you're good, but it doesn't seem like that because now they are very peculiar about the kind of membership that you submit. In fact, the way they would attack you under an RFE, which is like, kind of response that you get when you don't get an approval. And of course, they give you an explanation as to what you have done and how they want you to now give them additional evidence to get the approval. They have said that the kind of membership that you need are those ones that were given to you based on outstanding achievements. I will explain. So in the world today, we know that many of these associations, you either express interest, or you write an exam, or you pay some membership dues. Either way, you're gonna become a member. So that's not the problem. So when people submit evidence for this category, they submit their membership certificate, their membership page on the portal of the association, the dues that they have paid, and many things that could prove that they are a member. Now, when we forward this to the USAIS, they come back to say, we don't want to get any evidence that shows that you paid for this membership. We don't want to even see that you would even paid for this membership, which is sort of weird because I've seen the best of membership in the world today that people have to pay for. Even the Forbes Technology Councils, the Forbes Business Council, people have to pay for that membership. But you have to leave out those kind of evidence because they don't want to see it. So they prefer membership that you were selected because they believe that you are doing something good in your field. And of course, that's the sole purpose of which you were invited. So how do you show evidence for this? So a membership letter from the organization can say, okay, you know what, our criteria is that, okay, this person must have done this in the field. They're outstanding. They have maybe 10 years or 7 years experience in this field. So all those things put together can show that you're extraordinary. Another way is if by default they already have it in their bylaws or their constitution, that can be a very good example of supporting evidence to show that I didn't pay for this membership. I was actually selected based on the things that I've done in my field to step up. So that's for membership. So if you have like maybe two of those things or three or one, you can still make a case for it. So the third thing here is now published material about you in major media. This is sort of like, very confusing for many people because that particular thing I just said now contains like two keywords. One is like, published material. The second is major media. But strictly speaking, they are trying to get newspaper articles about you. Naturally, we have people that, by virtue of what they do, they are brilliant. Anything that they do, even if they cough, it gets to the front page or the middle page of the newspapers. I don't know how they do it. Some people pay for it. Some people just get that media coverage by default. People like that, I appreciate them or I applaud them because they are up and doing. When people come on my clarity calls, they tell me, oh, I've actually had opportunities to publish before, but I've not been doing it. I tell them it's not a problem. The mere fact that you haven't been doing that before doesn't mean that you can't start tomorrow or you can't start today. But just to ensure that when you are trying to do this for this process, you don't do it the same day. You don't publish 5 articles the same day. It won't look organic anymore. You're not publishing articles the same like in the same week. Ensure you space them out so that at least in the list they won't say you are submitting your evidences in the same category, same period. So they want to see where your work has been in the pages of the Guardian, the Punch of this world, the Vanguard, basically with your picture in the middle, maybe you have your arms crossed, very nice headshot, very nice heading about what you do, because that's the only way they can believe that you have influenced that field. If I when people submit this kind of evidence, sometimes you have people, they appear in a cohort of 5 people, this kind of left to right or right to left. They single you out and say, there's nothing about this article that talks about what you do, and that they're not going to, accept that article. So those are the things that we do to vet and sift out people's evidence when they submit it to us to say, you might think you have the best kind of evidence, but by the time we start looking through it and we can't get a feel that this article is talking about the merits of what you do in your field, they are taking it out. So that's that for published material. So if you can get very good articles that speak about what you do in any of these newspapers, then you're good. Another one is evidence of your authorship. So people always mix this up sometimes. Evidence of authorship and evidence of published material. Major media. So while one is talking about the newspapers, one is talking about what you have actually written as an author. Like whatever you have published, could be a book, could be articles. You just want to see your pen game, what you have put out there that people in the field are, reading or learning from. This can also be tricky because I've seen people, and one of the things that make people struggle with, I've done this for a long time. I've met people that they wear different hats in their career. Like people are like coaches, they are business, people. They also they have some level of non-profit work that they are doing. One thing about the special talent visa is that USIS will not want to see anything non-profit on your application at all. In fact, it's going to be the first red flag on the application. Anything NGO, non-profit, anything that you don't make money from, please do not submit it. And the reason is because they were clear when they were putting out the blanket category of the old one. They said you have to come from following blanket categories. You have to come from business, arts, athletics, education, performing arts. There was no way where they said non-profit. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've had clients that, yes, they had things from all these sectors, from business, from non-profits, and from leadership, from coaching. So naturally, your instinct would be that let's submit everything. Let them go and pick whatever they want in this pool of evidence. Unfortunately, that almost created, problems for them because they didn't get it the first time. In fact, they were queried. They said, most of the evidence came from religion, non-profit work. So we had to now sort the religion work and the non-profit work from the business, and then we think the business work only. That was when they were not able to get the O1 approval. So I tell people, yes, even though you have all the awards from your non-profit work, you're going to bring it out because it would create more problems for you than good. So yes, evidence of authorship is very important. So some people have written books on, on God, which is good, about religion, perfect. But for this process, we're going to be excluding those books that you have written because when you are submitting evidence of authorship, They said from the title of the book, it must come off as educative and scholarly. That when people see the title of that book, they know that it's not for the general public. Like for people who are trying to get into a particular line of work. So pretty much if you write a textbook about a field, that's a very good evidence of you are writing a scholarly article, a scholarly book. So that's pretty much what guides evidence collection or evidence of scholar or authorship, right? Now the next one is evidence of you judging the work of others. This one is always like a very straightforward one. In fact, once you meet this one, I think it sets a very good tone for you to meet the other two that we're looking for. This one, they just wanted to show evidence that you have been a judge of people's performance. You have rated people's performance. And how do you show evidence for this? And I'm showing people here, over time, people have invited you to be a judge, to be a panelist. Some you ignore, some you accept. And that's typically the challenge because people tell me that, oh, I've had all these things in the past. I don't usually answer them. Now you need to answer them because those things are very, very good for your process. Because any way that you have been invited to be a judge to rate people's work, you can use those things as evidence for this process. If you have been invited to be a panelist, to be a referee, so anywhere you sit on that throne where you have to pass judgment on people's performance, they want to see that. If you have your own startup company and you are involved in the appraisals of your employees, a letter from your HR just stating that you are involved in the day-to-day appraisal of your staff. That's a very good one. If you work in a corporation in a multinational and you are always on the board of appraisal, maybe it's a PLC, you're on the governance committee or you're on the board. That's what board of directors do. So if you have all those letters that show that your appointment charter, the letter of appointment, the letter of invitation to be a judge, to be a panelist, in fact, right now when you submit letters of invite alone, they still come back to say, we know that people get invited but they don't go for this thing, so they want to see proof that you actually attended and you rated people's work. So we tell people that, okay, in addition to your letters of invite, get us appreciation letters from the organizers, just thanking you that you actually came and then you rated people's work. So that way you have like solid evidence for that category and that will just take care of it. So all those things put together with mark and of course tick that category. The next one is leading a critical role for a distinguished organization.
Sorry, before you continue, I just want to do a recap of all the evidences he has mentioned so far. So we are not lost. Awards, right? Sorry? Global awards. Thank you very much. Who else can mention? Memberships too. Yes. Published material in major media. That's 3. Authorship, evidence of authorship. That's 4. Then which other one? Sorry, we mentioned membership. Judging the works of others. That makes it 5. So we're on the 6th one now. I hope we are following.
Yeah. So the 6th one is now leading a critical role in a distinguished organization. And I tell people that this can be one easy evidence to get or one criterion to meet. If you have served as a manager, as a senior manager in any company, that sort of puts you as leading a critical role. So how do you measure critical role? Basically, if you're responsible for the success or otherwise of the organization, you will be critical role. And people that hold critical role and project are the managers, the senior managers. It doesn't matter which senior manager or manager you are, the case can be made for how important that your role is. So I tell people that once you have an offer letter that states that you were employed as a manager somewhere, that's the first hurdle that has been crossed. And the second hurdle would now be to now make claim that that company is reputable or is distinguishable or distinguished. Now, for many multinationals like Microsoft, by virtue of what they have done, you don't need to say too much. They are already reputable when you submit an offer letter from those companies. But if you're submitting an offer letter from a company that maybe it's a startup, it's not really known, then you need to do more because now you need to show the USCIS what that company is also reputable. So you need to show the organogram, the company profile, the company has raised funds, safe agreements, any evidence of good press about the company in the media. All those things put together can now qualify you to say you hold a critical role in a reputable company. If you have a startup, you being the founder, the CEO already puts you as leading a critical role in that company by default. Just need to now show evidence that that company is not only existing on the shelf, or a share company that you actually have traction in the market. So that will sort of like help you for this particular criteria. So that's number 7. The next one is evidence of high salary. High salary is always like
That makes it 6, right?
6 out of okay, 7
7.
now.
7 now.
So number 7 is now evidence of what? High salary. High salary is always very, very dicey. I always tell people that if you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And the reason why we added this is because the US government understands that it is impossible to pay talent with money. We know many people that are talented and they get paid very well for their talent. That's fine. We also know many people are talented, but they don't really get paid well for their talent. So, in case you don't have it, you look at every other criterion that doesn't have to do with money, and then you submit evidence, you still get approved nonetheless. Now, for those who actually get well paid for their talent, this criterion is for them. So the question that comes up here is that what actually constitutes high salary? Like what figure are they looking at? This question comes up a lot. Now, here is the most interesting thing. They don't have a figure, in fact. She can submit evidence that she earns $75,000 and she'll get approved. You can submit evidence that you earn $150,000 and you get approved. You can submit $50,000 and you get approved. What typically would determine it is your field and your level. So what they have done is that they want you to first submit evidence of your income. Could be your offer letter, could be your pay slip, could be your bank statement, but they want to get a figure from you that this is what you take home. So your offer letter, your pay slip will do justice to that. Now, having submitted that, you now need to submit a comparative industry analysis of what people typically earn in your field. So basically, you're telling them that in my field, people normally earn 1 million naira a month. Now, because I earn 1.2 million, I am deemed to command a high salary in my field. Now, how do you show evidence for that comparative analysis? You have like Jobberman scale survey, you have a Glassdoor. Trust me, if you go online, you would have done a survey in your field. So if you get that survey where you can now submit that, okay, this is what the value in my field. That can be a very good evidence for that. Also, if you have an HR friend that can write you a letter, like an advisory opinion on what people typically earn in that field, that can also be a way to get qualified for this. Now, I saved the best for last, which is the final one that we call evidence of original contribution to the field. This particular one, I don't even want people to stress about it because if it is there, it is there. If it's not there, no matter how hard you try, they would never approve it for you. So I always let people let's focus on the ones that are not technical first. So what we like to do at best is that even when people have met 3, we like to still do more because it's always better for people to have a surplus than to be deficit. And the reason is because I've seen people that came to me to say, you know what, I don't like stress. I just want to do 3 and get this over with. I'm like, that's good. But you see, the problem is, you might think you have done justice to that 3. But by the time it gets to a Tracy or a Nancy in Nebraska, and they start reviewing your application, and they feel like, out of these 3, but I've only seen that you have met 2, but you see that third one, I'm not convinced, I won't be approving this. Now, that person would say, if you had submitted more, I would have gone into those other things and also, and then maybe find a third one. But because you didn't submit the third one, or you didn't submit more, they can either deny or send you request for additional evidence, but you don't want to find out whatever they decide at that point anyway. So we always tell people that it can be tricky and dicey if you just go allowed to do it. So in the case of you want to do 3, it's not a problem, but it has to be all hits and no misses. You have to be spot on those 3. But to improve your chances, if you can get evidence for all the 8, even better. Let them go and sort out the 3 that they want out of your numerous pool. So the last one, which is the original contribution, is where they basically have said they want to understand what you have contributed to your field, that is input, original. Now, people always try their best to submit evidence for this, and I tell people it's not so hard. If you have done it, it will show. So one thing that they want to see is that when it comes to people describing what they have done in their field, everyone can always say, "Oh, I've done this, I've done that." Yes, they want to believe you, but it carries more weight when it's coming from other people. So if you're trying to describe what I've done in my field now, and you're like an expert in my field, it carries more weight than me just saying it because I'm obviously going to talk about the good things about myself. So, but if you're saying it, you're putting your reputation on the line and the whole other things for you to just say this is what I've done. So the best way to show evidence of this would be recommendation letters. And of course, this is where they want people in your field who are like experts to talk about those key things that they have seen you contribute to your field. Now, the emphasis is now what constitutes original contribution, because this is very important. It's not only that these people have to talk about you only. In fact, the best way we like to attack this is that we always warn people that please do not get signed letters for us, because I can guarantee you that 9 out of 10 referees would not do justice to these letters. In fact, when you tell people to write these letters for you, guess what they focus on? They will say, "Oh, Mr. Ife is a very good person. He's a nice person. His work ethic is off the roof. He meets his deliverables." Basically, they go on and on about character. Now, character is not what they look for. The US could care less if you're a good person or not. They really don't care. But that information about your contribution is what they're after. And trust me, most referees would miss that point completely. So to save time and also so you don't abuse the privilege that you have with your referee, because it wouldn't look good if you submit a letter that you have signed or that you have obtained and we tell you go and obtain it again, because you know that sometimes it takes you like forever to get that person in the first place. So we don't want you to look like you don't know what you're doing before your referee. So we tell you that give us a draft first. You know, note the things that we feel that are not, you know, add our own inputs to your letters before you get them signed. So when it comes to original contribution, we want to say things that are proprietary that you have contributed. Notice that word proprietary. So when they are describing your input, words matter and phrases matter in this process. So things like you are the first person to have done something, you pioneered something, those are the key things that they want to be seen in those letters. Because if those things are not there, it defeats the purpose of being original. Now, for people who have done things, who have trademarked ideas, who have patented ideas, those are the good things that they want to see, because that means you're the first or the only one who have done those things. So those things are critical for you to get. So if you have an app, for example, you create a platform. That's a very good one. So that's why I said if you have it, you have it, and of course all those things put together would form all eight. So any three out of this thing I just mentioned would get you your own one approach.
Wow, fantastic. Please, let's give my space. Thank you so much. I can see we've got a lot of people in the room that have joined us so far. Interesting. We were discussing about the different pathways that you can take advantage of, particularly the special talent visas. And you have just walked us through the different eligibility criteria that if you typically meet at least three of these, you are good to go, particularly for the US whole visa. And I just want us to go through them again. I don't know, can anybody mention it that he has mentioned? Anybody here? Or we go together? I know awards, yeah, memberships, yes, published material in major media, yes, evidence of authorship, yes, uh, leading a critical role, yeah, judging the work of others, that is six. Then evidence of high salary, seven. Then the last one you just mentioned, evidence of original contribution. We've been a fantastic audience. Let's clap ourselves. Lovely, lovely. I noticed before you continue, you mentioned something about request for additional evidence and denial. We don't pray for such, but what really constitutes such and the process of application? Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So remember I said it when I started that this is a merit-based application. In fact, this is one of the most straightforward application you ever get to submit with the US government. On the B1, B2, anything can go wrong. And they won't even tell you what went wrong. They just tell you to only apply because you're not qualified at that time. F1, they do the same. They just tell you that they're not qualified, even with all the funding of this world. Now for the old one, they see that one, you have spent money to submit this application. Number two, you are being considered on the strength of your career. So trust me, they owe you an explanation if they say you're not going to get this. So the criteria I just mentioned earlier on, it's very simple. You meet three and you get approved. Sometimes when you are submitted, even for all the eight, and you have seen your process, they've seen your application, they got to, but they can't get the third one. They've tried their best, they've looked at every other thing that you have submitted. Maybe your awards didn't have the qualification criteria, it doesn't have the selection process. Maybe your membership doesn't have that, it was obtained based on outstanding achievements. Maybe the newspaper that you submitted doesn't really talk about your work, but you have other people in that frame. They would note everything. In fact, I've seen an RFE that was almost 20 pages long, where they picked apart the entire application. They will quote your referees and say, Mr. Agbabiaka says that you did this and this. We can't find evidence of that in your application. They will tell you that you are a member of so NIOB. You went to the website of NIOB. It doesn't state that you can get their membership based on that. So they do their own work when they are sort of like reviewing this. So we have to check out those boxes before those things go in. So for some reasons, if they come back to say we found one or we found two, but we can't find the third, however, we need additional evidence. So they will give you the opportunity to submit more because they know that sometimes in the first place maybe you didn't have time and just wanted to just try your luck. It's not a problem. They will note the ones that you have. Sometimes you might not even have met all the three, but they still give you an opportunity to now submit additional evidence to meet the gates. Now, here's the problem. If you're getting an RFE, it's not going to be business as usual because now they're going to be boxing you into a time constraint. Typically, they give 60 days for you to submit those evidence that you haven't submitted before. And now, because you are submitting additional evidence, because they will tell you what they need, they will tell you the kind of things that they actually need. The challenge is that if you now want to go and rush and do those things at that time, you will not be able to meet it anymore because they will see the date. So if you are submitting a date publication after the date of your RFE, it's zero because now they're sort of doing it after the fact. So it has to be backdated. So that's why when we're in the review process, I tell people that what is worth doing now is what doing. Let's get these evidences right. Now that you have the time and you're not in a time constraint. Because when the RFE comes, you just have to look at the ones that doesn't have to do with timeline or dates, and then supply that to get the approval. So yes, RFEs do this approval almost all the time if you get all the evidences right on that one.
Interesting. Before you go ahead, I also want to ask this question. There are a lot of people here, they've heard the beautiful things you said about the eligibility, criteria they need to meet, and they're wondering, how do I gather? These are quite a lot, quite a lot. Like, how do I, what do I sleep? How do I start gathering? When does Vesti come in? You say you're a migration fintech company. So, what's the role of Vesti, even in the gathering of all these evidences?
Absolutely. So there are two kinds of applicants that we get. I call them Tier A applicants and Tier B. Both applicants they are eligible, they are qualified. Now the problem is that Tier A applicants, they are those people that, like I said earlier, they are up and doing. If they get any recognition, they are seeing it in the newspaper following day or next week. It's very natural for some people. I mean, everyone is not like that, but some people just have that framework. So you see it on LinkedIn, they have published, they have done this, even though they didn't know they'll be doing the one, at some point. So when they come in and they hear this, set of requirements, they're like, what, give me a week. Then they come back after a week and they have everything. They have awards, they have memberships, they have authors. Some people have even written books. And people write books without needing the book, they just write and they publish. And then they just give you the manuscript or they give you the soft copy, they give you the Amazon links, and all those things are like very good evidence for those people. So I call those people CIA applicants. They don't really need to do any of that. So in fact, the only thing they might need when they come is that they need to now go and get their letters signed from their referees because every other thing has been checked out. Now for the TRB applicants, the challenge with them mostly is that when they come on my call, they tell me that I'm a lucky person. I just do my work, I get my paycheck, I go home, I don't like my face out there in newspapers. Many people are like that. Many people don't want attention. But trust me, they have been fantastic in their career as well. Many people have been recognized in their places of work for being outstanding, for being brilliant. Just that they will never post those things on LinkedIn like every other person would do. They won't really know about it. They're just like the rank, rising through the ranks low key. So I tell them that don't beat yourself. Some people would come on my band and tell me that, see, where I used to work maybe in Mobile or Total, I worked there maybe 10 years ago. I've been locked out of that email now. I can't get many of those things anymore, but I used to have them. So these things happen, and I tell them it's not a problem. What you should be looking at is that those requirements that we have just gone over, look at what you have there, look at what you don't have there. So the way we like to work is that once you decide to do this journey with us, we first get a feel of whatever documents you have. Just let us see, we review everything line by line, and then we let you know the ones that will qualify and the ones that we are throwing out. Doing that, we know where you are strong and we know where you are weak. It can be one category that you would meet, it's not a problem. Now, what we have now designed is one special support service that we call documentation support service. It is optional. We just always recommend to people that this might be beneficial to you. And the reason is because everybody has heard this requirement tonight. People are already like brainstorming what they possibly have now that ticks these boxes. So people are already like thinking about maybe a publisher that they can call tomorrow that can start publishing the articles. It's totally understand. It's normal. And so people would hear this, and for the next 3-4 months, they would do anything because they are still thinking about how do I get started? Can I even write books now? Who will write my letters and those things? So what we mean is that each of those categories that I've listed, we have some level of additional support, like in quotes, additional. We don't have documents to give anyone. We cannot manufacture documents for you. Ethically, that is wrong. But what we can do is that once we realize or we notice the place where we believe that you're struggling or where we believe that you require additional help, we can point you into the direction of where you can get those things. And I'll give you examples. Let's take awards for instance. You're trying to do this and you don't have awards. And that can be a very challenging thing to get. But I tell people that sometimes awards don't come on to many people. You have to go get awards. From what I've seen doing this like over the past couple of years now. I see many awards that when they are about to happen, they call for nominations, they call for judges, they call for people to get nominated. But because you're not actually looking for that award, you might not even hear about it. You might not even know that you're qualified. So basically what we do is that we look at your background and we see many of them come to us as a point. They know that we work with a lot of qualified people, Future Awards, Global Startup Awards, JCI, they all come to us to say, oh, we have this award coming up. At this time, we don't really have a lot of people to nominate, but because we know that you guys work with a lot of qualified people, kindly recommend people from your network so that we can nominate them for this our award. So typically, we reach out to those who have supported to that particular support service, and then we tell them to quickly act on that link and then get nominated for it. Typically, to get that maybe you get people within your network to nominate you for that particular award, and then of course, if you are successful, you can be nominated. There's also a chance that they might not pick you. It's a game of numbers. We keep on recommending till you get one or two of them for that category. For membership, we have like a list of possible associations that you can join. And this is where we always advise you to be steadfast, do not look at distress, and to thank you because many of these things will require you actually applying. When you apply, they will say they want to meet with you or they want to do an interview. That can be stressful sometimes, but you have to focus on the end goal of what you are trying to achieve because nothing becomes easy, right? So it's not a problem that you didn't gather this or didn't gather this at the beginning of your career, but now that you have known about it, it's not too late. The only thing that stands between you and getting caught, I tell people, I've seen people that when they started year one, they had nothing, like zero or not yet. But by the time they committed the time process to it, and by let's say month 7 or month 6, they had evidence. So that's pretty much the things that can cause a difference between you doing this if you don't have necessary documents and of course getting qualified at the end of the day.
Interesting. Also, I believe that you can also self-nominate, right?
Absolutely, depending on the requirement of the award. Some would, to be honest, it depends on the organizers. I've seen awards that they will, after you have been nominated, they will tell you that for you to win, you have to take some level of money. We don't control all that because they're like third parties. We really have to just recommend them to you. For example, let's say you have to also publish articles. We also have our own media partners that we can introduce to you that will publish your articles in the major media. If you have manuscript of books that you have not published, we have our own international publishing house that we can also introduce to you. They will take your manuscript, they will review them, and then of course publish internationally, so that at least coming out of this process, you're not only getting an approval for a visa, you're an author. People will run the name of Google, they'll see evidence of what you have done. So people see that as a case of like, one stone to kill two birds. So the things that you didn't want to do before in your career, at least now you have a digital footprint that shows that you actually merited that visa.
All right, this is the final question. Then we have the Q&A to get some feeders from the audience. I'm aware that there are some people in this audience that started this process, and perhaps they got to a point and they never continued the process. How do we, we are waking the energy in this couple of people in the audience to start this process and continue?
Yeah, that's a very good one. So one thing I tell people is that the one thing that can make you like, hasten on this journey is the political landscape of the US. It is very dynamic right now, and I'm sure everyone is conversant with what's going on over there. Donald Trump might be coming back, and immigrants don't want that. People who are trying to come to the US don't want that because he has already said that his first, line of action would be to like, close the borders and of course carry out the deportation of the US. So and it doesn't like because if you check his antecedents, he has done it before, and So and one thing that he did when he was president last time, in case you didn't know that, maybe you're just hearing about these visas for the first time, or you're wondering why they're so popular now. When he was president, he actually banned these visas for Nigerians. So what the US likes to do is that they look at certain countries and then they say, other countries can be getting these visas, but because your country has been banned, you are not eligible. You'll be surprised that visa lottery is still on for some countries in Africa up to today. For Nigeria, we are no longer eligible because we have maxed at our own quota a long time ago. Cameroon, they like us to getting all this TPS and the like. So I tell people that if you qualify for something, just try and do it now because you never know what will happen in November or January next year when this guy in case he wins, so you never know. So that's like one thing to look at, or to consider.
Interesting. Please help me give a round of applause to the participants. Thank you very much. I'll be moving right now into the audience to get questions. If you have questions, I can see hands up. I'll just give us numbers and we'll take the questions right away. So I saw yours first. So I'll start from you, 1. Then I start here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any other person who would like to ask question? 6. I hope we know our numbers. 6. Any other person? All right, number 1.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Damola, for the detailed presentation. So, my question is twofold. The first question, if I'm going to use Vesti for the documentation for the 01 visa, end to end, what's the cost? That's the first question. Then the second question, I'm aware of other routes apart from the whole one in the US. At least I know of the EB visa, which other, but then there's one that recently came out for models and entrepreneurs. I think it just came out February 24th.
So I was still going to talk about like those ones. I just want to like finish with the one before we just move to the EBs.
Okay, because the old one, from your presentation, you said you can't apply for dependent, or rather, the dependent can't work with their own three.
They cannot.
So it's limited.
Yes.
But it's not the same with EB. So can you help us with a brief presentation on EB visa and then the cost?
Okay.
So, would you like to pick on the questions or just answer them after the other?
So I don't forget, I think I'll just answer that.
All right, that works.
So the first question is about the cost. So like I said earlier, we have 2 tiers of cost for those who are doing this, just because they want, our advisory opinion on their documents, and of course to guide them on their letters and all those like basic, mundane things. The cost is $10,000. That's like for those who don't require our documentation support. So basically, you signify interest, you come on our clarity call, we explain the process, we onboard you, and of course we share your cloud system, and then you submit your documents. And then we review your documents, and then we let you know where we believe that you have good evidence, and where you do not have the right evidence. Sometimes people think they are qualified, And by the time we review their documents, see that those things are not really what would get them approved. And at that point, that might be when they now sign up for the documentation support because they feel like, okay, you know what, I don't want to start looking for this thing at this time. Or some would say, you know what, I'll go and get them and I'll bring them to you. That's not a problem. For those who need that extra level of hand holding, whereby you don't want to start going and looking for membership outside, you can send me like series of lists to apply from. You can connect it to people that can publish your articles, publish your books, a website can recommend that you can sign up for, maybe the work of others, review your letters. In fact, when it comes to recommendation letters on the documentation support, what we do is that people are naturally confused as to the suitability of referees. That's usually the first step because people are like, oh, I have 10 people in mind. I don't know which one is not, which one is appropriate here. So we tell them that send us the list of the people that you're looking at, send us their LinkedIn profile. We will check them out for you and then select the best five that we believe are most suitable for this process. So that's sort of like what we do on the documents. We sort of take our handholding a step further so that we are not sort of like, all over the place looking for things. Of course, we are still allowed to look for things and give us what basically in the minimum will be the one recommended things that you need to do. And because we don't have documents to give you, these things are usually time sensitive. They require you to apply for them, to jump on those links. Sometimes the organizers want to like meet with you, interview you, but some part of the process so that you can have like that organic touch. Because when it gets to the US government, they will do their background check and you never know what level they would go to verify what you're submitting. So that's why we always take you through that journey.
All right. Number two.
Second question. About the distinction between the EPs and the O1. So the O1 visa I just explained now, it's got a direct equivalent. Just like a path to a green card in the US called the EB1. Now, the requirements are the same from the O1 and the EB1. They are the same. The question people always ask is, why don't I do the EB1? It gets me a green card and then skip the O1. So I'll answer that question now. Because if you do the EB1, you're dependent, everybody gets their green card. There's no need for like limitation. Like once you have a green card, you're eligible to work. Now the only few things that that differs between the O1 and the EB1 is this. So for the O1 is sort of like very fast. If I start the O1 today, this is March 5th. It will be in the US by mid-April. That's how fast the O1 is because like I said earlier, you would be the one to go and check out the dates on the US consulate website, and the dates are sort of like near. It's not like the B1, B2 where you can, get this one you get it within a week for your interview. Now, for the EB1, it is different. When you get approved, you won't be the one to go and check out for a date on the US consulate website. Your application moves to the National Visa Center of the Department of State. Now, they will be the one to select you for an interview. Now, the date when they will select you for that interview can be 1 year from now, can be 2 years from now. You just have to wait. So that's sort of like something that you can factor into like when you're trying to like do the EB1. Now it would be a different ballgame entirely if you have like a US visa, like a B1, B2 that you have been using to travel and back. That sort of like makes a huge difference in the timeline of doing this because if you get your EB1 approved and you have a current US visa, you do not need to do the consular processing. All you just have to do is just travel on your B1, go to the US, and while you're in the US, you adjust your status inside the US and you get your green card. So for those who don't have a US visa, that's the problem. They have to wait out, that NVC call. I met someone yesterday who's been waiting for 2 years for the NVC call, but it's been approved. I just tell you, you have to just like, keep trusting God and hoping that they call you this year.
All right, number two.
Good evening. Two quick questions. Can you study with an open visa?
Yes, you can.
Okay, excellent. Second question. Is there like, for the references now, I mean, I don't know if this is proper to ask, is there like a template instead of to just avoid the send us a draft, let us look at it? Some of us have excellent relationships with potential referees if we qualify. Absolutely, such that just do it outside.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So it's easier said, so trust me. There are templates, that's not the problem. You'll be given templates the moment you sign up for this. But if you do our documentation support, you're not only going to get templates, you will get actual level of work that's like tailored to what you're doing. So even when you have like at least the least you can do is use a template to create a draft. So when you have that draft, we still beg you. If I will beg, because people would come back and say, "Oh, my referee does not want your draft or the one that you have worked on." They actually want to insist that they want to write the letter. And I tell people that see, when referees insist like that, they want to destroy your life because they will not do justice to what we want them to do. So let them do it. But we are going to explain that later when it comes. And then we focus on the people that actually listen. Remember I told you earlier, you have to focus on original contribution. When people now say that they want to write your letters and they don't focus on those things, it won't do you justice. So we have already preempted what could happen. We've seen it all, trust me. So that's sort of like the angle we come up from.
All right. What's the pathway from O1 to getting your green card?
That's a very good question. So remember I just said, okay, you have a okay.
Then what's the okay for O1? You can nominate. You mentioned two things. Maybe an employer has to nominate you, then you can nominate yourself. So to nominate yourself, you need to have a company. Okay. Okay. Then what is the difference between O1 and EB2?
Yeah. So the first question is what's that first question again? Pathway from O1 to green card. Okay, yes. So getting the O1 first off, I always tell people that if you can get the O1, you are like 85% qualified to get EB1 because they are the same requirements. So what people do is, and I've seen a lot of people that have gone through this particular pathway, they get the O1 first, get their photo to the country, and then they do the EB1. Now, the way it gets easier is because you are most likely going to be submitting the same level of evidence or document that you used to get the O1. Now, if they are like, maybe you are doing your EB1 maybe months apart from the O1, because there's no time frame for you to do the EB1. You can get to the US today and start your EB1 next month. It doesn't affect each other. There are two distinct, separate processes. However, they still understand that they gave you the O1. So trust me, they know the kind of things that you submitted for the O1. So when people are trying to do the EB1, which is like the direct equivalent of the O1, it's like the easiest thing to do. You can do the EB2 and W2, but because you got the O1, you are most likely better off applying for the EB1, which is like the same requirement. All you have to do is like, let's say you're doing the EB1 after 6 months of getting to the US or after 1 year, whatever you have gathered within that time frame, additionally, that's what you have to now submit in addition to what you used to get your O1, and then you get your EB1. Now, the difference between the O1 and the EB2NW, it's very clear. So the EB2NW is in the same class as the EB1. So remember I said in the beginning that we have two broad categories of visas. We have the non-immigrant visas, and then we have the immigrant visas. The O1 falls under the non-immigrant visa because anything they call non-immigrant means that there is no permanent there. You're only getting it for a temporary period of years. So the O1 is issued for 3 years. So the EB1, the EB2NW, they fall under the employment-based preference of the US immigrant visa. So the EB there means employment-based. So when you see the 1, the 2, the 3, 4, it means the preference. So we have EB preference 1, preference 2, 3, 4, 5. So the reason why they distributed this preference is because they know that it is impossible for people to have the same level of qualification. That's why they separated it. So you look at each of these preferences, see the one that ticks your boxes of your background, and then choose the one that you want to run with. EB2NW, broadly speaking, is targeted towards people with advanced degrees. Like you have a master's degree, you have a PhD. And the way the EB2NW has been set out is that you are basically promising the US government that when you give me the green card or you give me the green card, I have a plan which I'm going to be deploying to improve the US economy. It's like a case of you exchanging something for something. You're basically like giving them this proposal, saying that see, like you're even swearing that I swear when I come to the US, this is what I would do. And it's so tricky that people always think it can be something hard to get, but I tell them that see, anything that you have not done yet, Because all these things revolve around promises. Yeah, it's a promise for a future event. So you just like look at logically that how are they going to judge me on what I've not done? So what they know the internet is that there are three prompts that they look at to approve you. The first is that proposed endeavor, where you promise them that see, maybe I'm a developer. I'm going to develop an app that would improve the way things are done in a certain field. That's a very good one. If you're an entrepreneur, you could say, I'm going to expand my company from Nigeria to the US and I'm going to create opportunities. That's going to get you the national interest approved because America loves things that would create jobs, affect the GDP of the country, and of course would not affect the chances of the average American getting jobs. So that's the whole purpose of why we created the HNW. So we are basically telling them that see, when I get the green card, I'm not even going to compete with Americans for a job because I already have like things I want to do on my own path. So once you're able to now do that, you now wonder how will they now believe you that I can do the things I say I want to do. They have their ways. And that's where they go to the second prong where they now have to look at your antecedents, the things that you have done previously, similar to the things that you say you want to do. Like the case of only coming to you to say, I want to be your president, vote for me. They have given you a manifesto which is believable, and you are sort of like considering voting for them, but you are not sure whether they will deliver. But what can you do? You can look at whether they have been a governor before or a local government chairman and see whether they stole money or whether they performed. If you realize that they didn't perform as a local government chairman or as a governor, you won't be voting for them. That's exactly what the USIS does on the HNW. They flip the script, and then when they see your proposed endeavor, they now start looking at your antecedents, what you have done before. Have you done things similar to what you want? So somebody can say, I want to build a flying car. So by the time it's not in your documents, they will look at whether you have worked at Toyota in Ford, whether you have an engineering degree. All those things will now make them believe that you have the potential to do that thing in your proposed endeavor. So it's an academic process. It can be technical, but it's doable.
And technical, but it's doable.
All right. Thank you very much, Damola. So my questions will probably be more like scenario listening to you today. So first I heard about the fact that you can have your own company and then have your company petition for you. So at what point or at what visa category are you able to have your own company such that you can petition for you in lines of O1? Now there's also the EB1 O1 conversation, and I also hear you say something about. So I have a question. So let me paint this scenario. So you have a scenario where you have someone has the EB1 already approved. Now, knowing fully well that submitting as working to embassy here, it's going to take, you don't know what is the way around it. Thank you.
So I'll take the first question, which is the company aspect, the petitioner. So like I said earlier, there are two ways to get your one. You apply to a company in the US, any company whatsoever, and then you go through the interview process. They, tell you that you have gotten the job. Typically at that point, they either tell you that they want to hire you remotely or they want you on site. On site is really problematic because now you need to have a work visa. There are two kinds of visas that companies typically file for people at this stage. It can either be the H1B or the O1. Many of them run for the O1 because the O1 would cost them money. Look at it this way. Normally, if you file the O1, it takes around 5 to 9 months to get a response. But if the company wants to fast track it, they pay an extra like $3,000 to fast track it. You're already incurring costs of their hiring, so they run from it. So the H1B is sort of like more convenient for them to do, and also they have leverage over you with the H1B. So the H1B basically means that you're working with them. If you terminate your employment, you have 6 days to find another job within the country. But with the O1, if you register your own company, your own LLC, that LLC it's its own distinct personality. It has the same level of right as the Amazon and the Microsoft. Of course, one is bigger than the other, but in the face of the law, you are both paying taxes. You both have EIN, and you can both petition for workers. So that's what your company can do. So your company can petition for you and as many other people as possible. So that's the way that works. Now, the following question as to the going to circumvent the interview process, consular processing after the EB1 has been approved. It is possible. And the things that you can do around that is number one, once you have your EB1 approved, one thing you need to know is that it is inevitable you would be in the US. It's just how long you have to wait for them to call you. So that's one thing that EB1 does. Once you have the EB1 approval, that's the hardest part to get. Now, if you're the case, you're like, pressed for time and you feel like, you know what, I can't wait any longer. The thing that you can do is like, can apply for a B1, B2, a tourist visa. Now, this is where people always get it a bit confused because people believe that once you do that, it's an automatic denial. And the reason why they think that is because on the DS-160, there's a section where you have to indicate that you have filed an immigrant visa currently or before. And you know what they look at under non-immigrant visas or under B1, B2? They look at the intention to come back to the country. So if you have an immigrant visa approved or pending, and of course, they will ask you at the embassy that, oh, you see that you have a case that you are waiting for. What is the assurance that when we grant this B1, B2, that you will come back? That is left for discussion of the at that point because if you're able to convince them that you'll come back, yes, you can still get your B1, B2 approved, even after your B1 has been approved. But I can tell you that many people would struggle to establish their own ties because, like, you have no reason to come back. You can just stay over there and get your green card. So that's typically why most people think that it's an automatic denial if you apply for a B1, B2 after you have an immigrant visa approved.
All right. I've taken 4, 5. Then I think we have 6. Who's the 6th person? Okay. All right.
Good evening, everyone. For the O1 visa, if you have been denied before, B1, B2, F1, to whatever you want, or you've traveled and you've come back before the denial took place, is there a chance for you to get an O1 visa?
Yeah, so that's also a very good question that comes up, a lot in this process. So if we denied for F1, B1, B2, that's not a problem. Remember the O1, it's in its own distinct class. In fact, most times they don't even ask questions on your previous denial. So the way I know denials work at the embassy is if you have been denied for a class of visa and you're applying for that class again, maybe within a short period of time, they would ask you what is different now because now they see that there's a pattern. There was a reason why you were denied last time, and if you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting that denial. So I want to try like a new strategy. But if you move from that category to another class, the yardstick in which they will conduct your interview will be different. And I'll give you an example. If you have been denied for B1, B2, the only thing they ask there is the purpose of your trip, business or tourism. They ask a few questions and then they tell you whether you have or denied. Now for the O1, the interview is sort of like different. Remember, it's a work visa. In fact, the first thing that would come off when they're about to interview is that the visa officer would not know that the company that is filing for you is yours. So they will take the interview as if you are going to work for a company that you don't know at all. So because people we do interview for people that have been approved, and of course when they come back, they tell us that at the beginning it felt like they were grilling them about a company that they don't know about, and then they have to just like interject that excuse me, since there's a mix of this company that you're in a self-petition. So when you say that, you now say, oh, okay, this is now different. Because the reason why they do that is because a lot of companies in the US fight for people to come in, people from India, Pakistan, Nigeria. And trust me, there's a thin line sometimes between going to the US and being trafficked or being subjected to slave labor. And it's the job of the US consulate here to determine that you actually know the details of the company you're going to work for. So that's why the interview will always be centered around the company and the job that you're going to do in the US. So once they now establish that you are self-petitioning through your company and that you're trying to just expand your business, they now focus the attention of that interview on how you are special, how you are extraordinary. So that's now your opportunity to now start talking about your awards, the criteria I mentioned earlier, basically trying to show them how you got qualified for the O1. So that would not typically affect your chances on the O1. The only thing that might happen is if the person has been banned before, because bans typically the way it works is that you either serve your term or you get a waiver to be able to travel or get a visa. So if the person is still currently under a ban, then at that point, that might be a different company. They'll still get your one approved though in the US, but at the US consulate, they won't really budge and the passport. So that person might need a waiver at that point to be able to get their passport stamped.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Damola. And I have the sixth question.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
For the dependent schooling, the fee. You know, in the UK, there's something they call home fee and all this stuff. So is it like outright um, fee? Like, is it subsidized or you be paying? You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely understand. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's one. And then the second question is setting up the company. You're going to the US now, you're doing oil and gas. How are you going to get your clientele, people to, you understand? Even though you have feel, okay, this is what you are good in this sector, how are you going to
Yeah, so
get people to, thank you.
thank you very much. So, as to the first question about the fees that you pay as OPD, so when it comes to schooling in the US, there are two tiers of fee payment. You either pay in-state tuition or out of state. Three actually: in-state, out of state, and international. Now, the way it works is that because you're on OPD, typically if you are not a US citizen, you don't have a green card, and you want to school in the US, the school will typically want to allow you to apply for an F1 visa. But because you have an OPD, which is a class that can also go to school, you would know if you have to tell them that you don't need an F1 visa, that you have a visa that allows you to stay in the country. That's typically how the conversation would go. But many of the schools might not even understand what an OPD is, but they will do their own work and then revert to you that they clearly understand that OPD counts school. Now, as to the fees, whether it's going to be subsidized or not. So what determines in-state tuition? Because in-state tuition is the cheapest. Basically, it means that the residents of that state where the school is, they pay cheaper tuition. Now, anyone can qualify for in-state tuition. I stay in Texas. In Texas, what regulates Texas is that you must have stayed in Texas for at least a year and pay federal taxes in Texas. And then, of course, have some, things around like lease, proof that shows that you live in Texas before you can qualify for in-state tuition. So if you have not lived in that state for up to a year, you might still fall outside the bandwidth of in-state tuition, and then they'll still qualify you for maybe out of state or international. But if you have spent more than a year in a particular state, you've paid your taxes in that state, chances are that you could qualify for in-state, subsidized tuition. So I hope that answers the first question. And the second question as to how do you set up your LLC in the US. Now, first off, there are some companies that, for example, you mentioned engineering. So there are some companies that they require special licensing. And I know this because, when you register an engineering company in the US, at this being a register like this, you are getting a letter from the engineering body that regulates that profession, telling you that they don't want you to start work until you come and register with them. So that's the first step. And of course, that can be a good thing because now you are now in the cohort of professionals who can now further help you to set up your business. Now, for every other particular, maybe people that don't have those kind of regulation, maybe consulting, management consulting, sort of different because now you have an LLC, you're in the US, you have a social security number, you are wondering what do I do with this business? Now, the way we like to advise people is that, the city where you are working, first of join the Chamber of Commerce in that city. It will be the best thing that you ever do. If you're in Dallas, you're in Arlington, you're in Houston, just look for the mayor's office and join the Chamber of Commerce. Because chances are that that is where you start meeting people who actually need your services. And then from there, you start integrating into the society and the community. And then you start growing your business from there. You build a website, you have an optimized page so that when they actually look you up, they can actually see why you are equipped to take on those jobs. So that's exactly how you can now start growing your business. And of course, the sky is the limit from there.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Damola. I want to crave your indulgence. I have two people I want to ask questions. Can we go ahead? All right. So I have it.
All right, thanks, Damola. So I'll come from the monetary aspect now. Now, say I made deposit investing, yeah, as part payment for my process, and I literally did not continue per se. What's your advice for someone like me that paid like over a year ago, just a part deposit for this process to start, and looking at the new development and all that you've mentioned now, how can I just continue basically this process and get over with it?
Okay. Yeah, so thanks for that. So currently we have, clients like that. And one thing with us is that, you can't even like, stay for 1 year with us without hearing from us. Like we do random routine 2 weeks check. It's okay not to respond, but we're always going to be on your neck, asking for updates, asking for like a follow-up call, whether you want to meet with us, whether you want us to like clarify some things. In fact, if you have an assistant, we always encourage people to bring the assistant on board because people are busy, people have jobs. But if you have someone that can help, it could be your spouse, that would just like help you, with that documents gathering to make a difference because you won't be going through it alone. So we tell people that if you have people that work with you, your assistant, your spouse, bring them on board, we give them the access to your drive so that that way it's not only you that you're communicating with in your household in your company. So in case you miss an email, they would see it, and of course, so that way, if you are not hearing from me for like 2, 3, 4 months, we keep on like still checking up on you. I've seen people that will come back after like 4 months or 5 months and say, oh, actually something happened 5 months ago. So I had an incident, I think 2 weeks ago before I left the US. This person, we had a plan to actually like file the case in January, and for some reasons, I didn't hear from him. We were checking in, we were ready, like, let's get this over with. So no responses until 2 weeks ago when he said, oh, actually there was a problem in December. He came to the US and he was turned back at the port of entry. And like, that's very surprising. What happened was like, okay, because he came in on the B1, B2 on the previous visit. And of course, one thing with the port of entry is that you could be selected for a random secondary inspection. And that is where in quotes the shit gets real because that's when you can now check your phone, your laptops, to actually get a feel whether you're coming in as a visitor or you have other plans of things to do. So they found all those things on his phone by the way. And the officer was like, you don't seem to be a visitor, you don't have the intention of being a visitor, so I'm going to be revoking your visa and then sending you back. So basically, it was like he couldn't even come back to Nigeria. He just went to like another country, like an there. So up until now, it was just like like we wanted to just like get other things done first, and then figure out how to proceed from there. So we were able to just like devise another plan for him, which is the O1, because that would get him in the US faster than the B1 that was revoked. So yes, it's possible that people have like things taking their time on the low. But we always like always going to be in contact with you just to see how we can close this up.
Thank you so much. So the type of company you register, does it affect your chances, for instance, LLC or C Corp, and then you're strictly going there for expansion? Let's say you don't have any special skill. Is it gonna be certified for you if you're just doing business expansion?
All right, thanks for that. So it doesn't really matter whether you have a C corp or an S corp. Of course, it's a matter of personal preference. But we like to do C corp anyways because it has proven to be more effective in this process. So I mean, you can always come back later. Anyways, if you do the S corp, you can go back to C corp. Do C corp, back to like the S corp. So I don't think that would even like be material at all. Another thing that people consider when setting up the business is like the state. You know, every state in the US they have their own laws, but everyone prefers to register in Delaware because no state taxes or no federal tax or whichever one it is. But the taxes in Delaware basically don't apply to some things. But we prefer to register in the state of Texas because we're in Texas and it's a lot like easier for us to get those incorporation documents out within the record time for this process. So we do this in the state of Texas. So when you now get to the US, you prefer another state, you can always like register in that state and of course you have your O1 in check. As to the question of what other pathways that is available to people in case you don't have like in quote special talent or you can't meet the requirements of the O1. So there's one currently ongoing part. This is fifth. So the process starts tomorrow and it's called the H1B. So the H1B visa is going to, it's a lottery process. So just to give you a brief overview, the H1B is that visa that sort of cuts across the non-immigrant visa and an immigrant visa. So remember I said earlier that when you apply for it to a company in the US, you have chances of like issuing two visa or like applying for two visas for you, either the H1B or the O1. So the way this works is that at this point, let's say you're trying to do the H1B today, you don't have the luxury of time to start looking for a job right now that would now find H1B for you. It's not, it's it's impractical. You won't get it because like the timeline is so short. The job will end by March 22nd. However, with what we have currently, we have recruitment agencies on ground that are equipped to file or submit your name for the H1B lottery. So the H1B has two stages. Number one is a lottery phase in which there are like 65,000 visas available right now that everyone would get scratched for. So the way it works is that a lot of people apply for it, both from within the US and outside the US. And as much as the US government wants to give everybody that applies for this particular H1B, it is impossible. So they subject everyone to a lottery process first. And this lottery process, it's as plain as it is. There's no, but the only thing that you'll be submitting is your name and your gender. They don't even want to know your qualification because that could, place on level of bias in selection. So it's just a random raffle draw. You can't influence it, the company can't influence it, even Joe Biden can't influence it. So you have to just hope and pray that you are selected from that lottery. Now, once you are selected, you are 96% almost certain to get the H1B because most of the things that will be done is not from you. It's going to be done from the company side. So the company would be the one to approach the labor departments to submit the right documents to justify the hiring, prove that they have the necessary things that they are put in place, that they're going to pay you the right amount of money. And also wanted to notice that there's actually no job waiting anyway. It's just a means to get your foot into the country. If you get the H1B through this process, and you now actually get a job in the process when you get to the US, you can transfer the H1B to that new company and then keep working. So it's one of those things that you can consider. So it's also issued for 3 years, and you can also renew it for an additional 3 years. But after that 6 years, you are done on the H1B. So they expect that within that 6 years, you should have found a way to get a green card or something. So that's another part where available. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked on the H1B visa. I'm so excited about that. I have a couple of questions from our live chat. I want to take that. Again, I must crave your indulgence. I have two other people who want to ask questions here.
No problem, that's what we're here.
All right, excellent. So let me just take those on the live chats, then we go back to two questions here. So the first one says, I have a BSc. Is it possible to get a green card? If yes, what's the process and the payment plan? Then the second one says, I am applying for a master's. Is it advisable to apply for H1B, please?
So to answer the first question about the person with the BSc, yes, it is possible to get a green card with your BSc. So remember I mentioned earlier that we have the B2W whereby you need to have what we call an advanced degree to be eligible. Now, by advanced degree, there are two main degrees that the US gives preference to. That's master's and PhD. However, they have said if you have a bachelor's degree, a BSc, that you can also get qualified for the B2W. But you have to do one extra thing. That's that you have to show that you have 5 years post bachelor's experience for you to be eligible for the B2W. So master's degree holders don't need to show that you have 5 years experience. PhD holders don't need it. But if you don't have any of those two and you want to actually write on your BSc for the B2W, then you need to show that you have 5 years post baccalaureate or post bachelor's experience to be able to be eligible in the list to be eligible. So eligibility does not mean that you will be approved. Eligibility only means that you are qualified to begin that process. So they will now judge you on the merit of what you now have in the later on. So if you don't meet eligibility test, it means, even if you have the documents, you are not even qualified to begin it in the first place. It's like building a house on nothing too old. So the foundation is that eligibility, which is the advanced degree. So once you read that, you can now start stacking other things on that foundation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adedamola.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. It's been quite an insightful stuff. So my question is, you said if you have the B1, B2 visa, you are at an advantage. Now, for me, I am trying to renew my B1 and my Dropbox appointment date is in May. So, is it preferable to start the EB2 process or wait till you get your B1, B2 visa before you start the EB2? I also have a master's degree and all of that. So,
Yeah, I think you'd be better off to it actually. So even though it's a drop off, it can be tricky because remember the main purpose of them approving the B1B2 is the intent to come back. So if you apply for an immigrant visa while you're waiting for your drop off appointment, you'll still see it, and that might be like one of the reasons why you won't be approving it. So I always tell people that if you can get the B1B2 first, that's very good. Get that first and then commence the other process after that. It won't cancel one, it doesn't affect one another.
Thank you very much for all the answers you provided. My question is actually similar to what the lady have just asked. But in this case, for someone who already have the B1, B2 visa, is it preferable to go through the EB1 route or the O1 route?
Yeah, that's one question that I was expecting all day. So the reason why most people choose the O1 over the EB1 in the first place is that they couldn't get a B1 B2, or maybe they have a long date that seem like forever. So that's why they tried the O1 first, and when they get the O1, now they know that they have a foot into the country to do the EB1. So if you have a B1 B2, you already have that foot into the country. So you can now start planning towards the EB1. So you can commence your EB1 process and then just plan towards getting it approved. You can even get it approved without being in the US. I've seen people that when they started their EB1, they were in Ireland or in the UK, and when they got it approved, I know someone that was in the US. When she got it approved, she told us that let's hold off on the adjustment of status. That she still wants to use the B1 B2 for a while. So she left the US in January last year, came back in December after 11 months and said, okay, I'm ready for adjustment now. Let's adjust. So that's pretty much how it was. So if we want me to put you in a much better place to get this done within the source of the US in terms of adjustment of status.
All right, excellent. We've had an interesting. By the way, has this been really worthwhile? I didn't watch your time. I'm so happy to hear that. I want to really appreciate you for the insights you shared. I just want to give you a few minutes to give us some of perhaps your final charge or perhaps any other talking point you want to really emphasize on it to be a good opportunity to talk about that.
Okay, so I mentioned it earlier. It's always around the case of whatever you qualify for. Just don't wait, for a second because that political landscape is very dynamic. It could change in a jiffy, and I think it's going this way. And of course, they show you that this is the way that they're gonna go. And the way I know the US works, the way they churn out policies, it's crazy. You could be qualified for something today, tomorrow they say your country is no longer eligible. So, but the moment you're at the pool, you know that you're no longer affected. You're just waiting for a decision. So you're much better off. So whatever you qualify for, my advice is please don't wait for tomorrow because tomorrow might be too late.
Thank you so much. Please give Mr. Damola a round of applause. And on the final note, please give yourselves a round of applause. It's been an amazing audience this evening. Thank you so much for creating the time to join us for this Going Global event. Like I said earlier when we started, this is one event investment that we typically do across our country. So you may be seeing us saying that we are doing something similar again in Ghana this month, or even in Zambia, or even in the UK. So this is something that we do almost every quarter, or even every month, as the case may be. It allows us to really connect with people that are interested in these different pathways that we're talking about. And I want to also encourage you, please do well to get familiar with our app, the Vesty app. It's the operating system for human and capital global mobility, essentially. It's redefining how migration is being done right now, and it's something that we are so excited about, and we are so passionate about what we are building at Vesty. We have an amazing team, like you said. We're headquarters in Dallas, and we have our operation office there in Lagos, Nigeria, where we have our core operations and engineering team. And we've also expanded to Ghana, to Zambia, and the United Kingdom. And we're doing remarkable stuff within the space. So do well to follow us across our social media platforms. On Instagram, we are very active and online. On LinkedIn, we are very active. On Twitter, please do well to follow us, engage, and we will be very excited to hear from you. And if you want to send us email in respect to any of your special talent visa inquiries, you can just send an email to talentvisa@wevesty.com. Talent Visa, TALENT Visa @wevesty.com, and be assured that you get a response to that. Once again, I want to really appreciate you. We are going to bring the event to a close now. Of course, you can still ask us questions after this official setup. Like, welcome to any of our officials. We have some of our leadership in the room. We have a human resource manager, we have a community manager, we have a deputy operations lead, a chief financial officer. We have some of our vested officials right here in the room, and they will be so delighted to answer any of the pertinent questions. Once again, I want to appreciate you for creating the time to join us this evening, and please have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. My name is Ifeoluwa Irina Abadi. I'm the partnership and comms lead at Vested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.